To start a season, they're on the way up, they're heading in the right directions, and one of the reasons for that is our first guest on the show tonight. Please make him welcome, everybody, Jay King from the Tigers.
What a highlights package from last night. Have you seen your mark, your specky? Have you seen it back yet? Have you watched it?
I haven't yet.
You have to see this. Can I show it? Yeah. Are you happy to have a look at this? Altitude sickness. Look at that. Now, that wasn't paid.
What?
That was not paid as a mark, which I think is an absolute disgrace. It's a blight on the whole system. Have a look at the mark of the year from 1994.
Exactly.
You won Gary Ablett. You had it longer than that, mate.
Yes. Well, he's God, so...
Mick's been analysing it all day, though. He just can't... What have you got for us?
Yeah, well, we've got a split screen here. Have a look at this. Here
we go.
I have been going mad.
You
had it as long. You had it as long as Ablett.
You did, and that's why I'm awarding it Mark of the Year. Anyway, you win a car. We've had a custom made. Here it comes. Yes. There you go, mate. We'll play you the keys later. Keep moving, mate. Pick me up after the show. We'll go cruising. Do you see his attitude? He had a little Jake King attitude there.
Congratulations. Hey, Jack Revolt reckons you, at recovery this morning, you mentioned it 100 times. He said you tried to get the conversation going 100 times with your teammates. Did you see me say how stiff was I? Is that fair? Is he exaggerating?
I think he's spoken a couple of, porkies there. So, to be honest, we didn't have recovery this morning. We had it last night, so... Yeah,
so did you rave on last night then? Where? Surely you're talking yourself up. You've got to be.
No, I'm not, because I dropped the mark. It's not a mark, so I actually didn't want to talk about it. So.
In all seriousness, what went through your mind at that moment?
Well, I just tried to jump to spoil the ball, and next thing you know, my leg was sort of over his shoulder, and thought I might as well have a crack here. Should have just spoiled it.
That's fantastic. There were about 56,000 people at the MCG last night. If you're unaware, the Tigers did get the points. It's a pretty tight game of footy. They made you earn it last night, the Saints. It was a good game narrowly.
Yeah, and it was headlined by the Revolts. Jack Revolt finished with 7 goals. He had 10 kicks for the game and kicked 7 too. So not a handball in sight, but those 7 goals absolutely magnificent. Up the other end, Nick Revolt, of course, kicked 4. So 11 goals between the cousins. Just fantastic to see. After Jack didn't kick a goal last week, he took a bit of a hanger as well. Hardwick said that it was one of his best games last week, so I can't imagine what he thinks after 7 goals. But who would you prefer? Do you prefer the Jack Revolt in your team? Obviously, you're going to say that, but up against Nick Revolt, there was such a debate going on last night.
Well, yeah, Jack's outstanding, and to have him in the team's amazing, but I think he talks a hell of a lot, so I'd rather that side of Nick, if we could sort of join him together. But
and he's white-handing you, there's no doubt about that. He's jealous of you and your abilities. Let's check it. This is straight after the game, and just watch how this conversation ends up.
Probably the most exciting thing was Jake King nearly taking Mark of the Millennium. So had a good chuckle about that. We're all wrapped he didn't take it. He would never heard the end of it. I reckon it was hands in the back. I don't know how a small man can get up that high.
He called it hands in the back, mate.
Yeah, well, that's why I've pushed him up the ground, because I need that goal square, and there's more chance I can take a grab if he's not there. So.
Hey, your journey's been fantastic. I mean, when you first came into the side, you would have had to work pretty hard to get into that, and you speak to key Richmond people now, and you are a very important part in their minds of the 22. Was there a turning point in your career when you can remember thinking that I really belong in this footy team at this level now?
No, not really. Footy's a funny thing. A week in football is a long time. So even now, we've got a lot of talent coming through, and our depth is probably the best it's been since I've been at the club. And I still have to perform week in, week out, and it sort of keeps me going and has that nervous edge before every game, knowing that if I don't do my things for the team and for the boys, then there's a good chance I won't play the next week.
And it's clear in your mind, Damien Hardwick's impressed so many people in a relatively short period of time as a coach. In terms of what you need to do to maintain your spot in the side, he would make that fairly clear to you, I'd imagine.
Yeah, he makes it very obvious. Every player we get told that this is your role, this is your job, this is what you need to do. If you don't perform it and you go outside the team rules and boundaries, then it's simple, you won't play.
But he loves you. He loves you. He loved you from day one. He had a man crush on you.
We have a good understanding.
And you're really soaking it up too, like how good this is at the moment? Because I think you were the last player off the ground last night, just clapping the fans and really soaking up every bit of it.
Well, it just about did me back on that, so I sort of was hobbling off a fair bit.
Mick Molloy was the last fan out of the stadium.
Yeah, haven't been home yet.
2 weeks in a row.
You joked a bit about pushing Revolt up the ground. You've obviously loved that bit of a roll up forward. You had a banana last night, which was just absolute. Look at you. You're just full of confidence and approach it never in doubt.
Well, I actually
That's why I'm giving you goal of the year.
I tried to take me time to give it off to one of the other boys because I wasn't all that confident, and then well, the little devil in the back of the head said, "Stuff them all, just kick the goal."
On the Channel 7 commentary, Lee Matthews, none other than Lee Matthews, said after that you're the sort of bloke that he would love to play football with, that every week, every contest, you give everything you've got to give. Coming from somebody like Mal, I don't know whether you've heard him say that on the coverage yet, but coming from somebody like Lee Matthews, what does that mean?
Well, I actually hadn't heard it, but hearing it now...
You'll be checking the tape though, won't you?
I'll be going over it when I go. That's actually pretty big because he's a legend of the game.
Oh, he's the legend.
Yeah, and the way
one.
that he plays, it's what Richmond's trying to do, and to have someone of his standards pretty much come out and say that, it puts a smile on your face.
You're quite taken aback by that, aren't you?
Yeah, pretty much.
It's that legendary toughness it was from Lee Matthews, and he identifies the same in you. You're a tough nut. You're from Heidelberg, but not just Heidelberg, Heidelberg North. Is that where you played your footy?
Yeah, that's where I
That's
played,
a tough school, that one. Is it true? Now, I heard this on the end that you got kicked off the field in your under-11s grand final.
It was actually...
That's a yes.
It was actually under 10s, but we'll go with under 11s, yeah.
It was
Was it a sin
10s.
binning, or was it that just for the rest of the match you were gone?
No, I actually got reported at half time and I wasn't allowed to back on.
So what for?
What'd you get reported for?
I honestly can't remember. I just remember getting me medal at the end of the game and thinking half a game I've got my reason.
I love watching you go about the business. Here's just a classic moment of the little fella going mad. Look, he's just walking the guy backwards. Look, Jackie, out. You. Jack Rewald has to fish you out of this about twice a match, I reckon. You. Everybody out of the pool.
Do you feel slightly ridiculous when you're going like that?
It always happens to be the taller ones. It'd be nice to have someone my own height for a change.
Do you feel like the group's coming up? I mean, these are 2 games against Carlton and St Kilda, 2 games against sides who are probably going to finish around the mark with you guys at the end of the year. You've won both of them, and in seasons gone by, you might not have won, you might have dropped one or maybe not won either of them. Do you feel like, early doors 2013, it's a sign that the group is maturing?
Definitely. Last year, as you're well aware, we played a few of these games where it was really close and we ended up getting rolled. And the last 2 games last 2 games have actually performed, and the boys held on in the end, which was quite good.
Now, Jake, hear it before the game. We hate the ugly stain that drugs have left on this great game of AFL. So here, what we're doing this year is putting together a clean team. Now, these are players that definitely are not on performance-enhancing drugs, and perhaps our best nomination yet comes from last night's game, Jason Blake from St Kilda.
Brilliant.
Now, here's a point from Richmond. Blake captain there's bringing the ball to points. He's going to bring it back in. OK, what am I going to do? Handball! Handball! What the... How can you... And then there's Vickery laughing at him.
I've never seen
Not in the...
No, yeah.
So we welcome you in straight to full back. Straight to full back, right there.
Surely that's all. Isn't that Hall of Fame? That's
That is
Hall of
all
Fame.
I mean, in his defence, though, it does take a while to adjust to a rule that's only 140 years old.
Fantastic.
It's just him just putting his hand up going, yeah, all right, I know, I stuffed up.
Have you ever seen that before, ever? In your...
No, I haven't.
Not even in the under 10s when you got reported?
I never handballed back then.
By the way, just during the break, we learnt why Jay King actually did get suspended or sent off in the under 10 match, and given the time slot, we can't tell you. But it'll be on our email address later. Wow.
Now... it was fine. It was fine. The guy deserved it. No, it was...
9 years old.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure, he's weaving baskets in the country now, but beyond that, it's all good.
Hang on. Now let's get back to the footy. Your assistant coach, your new assistant coach is Mark Choco Williams, who I love. We love him. He's a premiership coach, and he's a big presence down there at Richmond now. He's just all over the place.
Commands respect.
He does, and I still love this bit. You think he's talking to you here, and you're just completely ignoring him. I mean, he's trying to tell you how to kick, and then you go, yeah, whatever. What was going on there?
Oh, Choco's got this theory that if you kick the ball off the inside of the boot, you're being lazy. So every kick has to come from the outside of the boot and swing sort of inwards. And yeah, he's got everyone bluffed.
He would know because when he takes those kicking drills at training, it is unbelievable the standard. Have a look here, Choco, and bang.
Look at Jack.
In Choco's defence, that was off the outside of the boot.
I imagine he's been a fantastic. I mean, this is a guy who's had an unbelievable career in footy. I imagine he's been a great. Shut up, my boy. Imagine he's been a great acquisition for you, blokes.
He's actually outstanding. He's premiership coach to come down and help out Dimmer. He looks after a lot of the young boys and loves to get around the older boys too. And it's one of them things where he loves the game so much and gets so excited. You sort of have to pull him back just a little bit. But yeah, he's been really good.
Now, I've been very entertained throughout the week. The banter between you and Jack Revolt on Twitter.
Oh, this is gold.
Yeah, this is great.
Tell us how you got involved in Twitter when you sort of decided to get on.
Well, the club, we spoke, and because there was so many fake Twitter accounts that were actually being done, we thought we might as well just make one and let everyone know that it is me, and I'm not very handy with modern technology, as we saw just then, and yeah, the boys sort of stitched me up a little bit a couple of days ago, and it's taken off since.
Now, Jack's actually encouraged you to bring your bad boy out on Twitter, I've seen.
Bring your bad
boy image.
Let's say the club would not be happy with that.
Again, given our time slot, we can't show you the bad boy right now.
It's the third show. I was bound to make one sooner or later. I got through two.
Sure.
He was encouraging. Well, I'm just going to try and pick myself up here. He was trying to get the bad image side of you out on Twitter. Your response?
Yeah, well, he kept trying to tell me to be myself, and the club kept telling me not to be myself. So, Daniel Jackson and Jack decided they'd take it upon themselves and try and add a fuel to the fire and start poking, and surely enough, it's taken off a fair bit.
You got a response?
Yeah.
The club weren't happy with you? No.
No.
Here's a little bit of how it's sort of rolled.
Yeah.
So they'd obviously hauled you over the coals. And
That must have helped. Did it help?
Yeah, no, they weren't happy with that one either.
You can kind of see why.
And the poor old media manager is actually...
Have a read of that, you know.
You really reined it in there, Jake. You really reined it in, mate.
The poor old media manager has actually had to come on Twitter to check up on what you've been tweeting.
Yeah, well, a couple of nights ago, he stayed up quite late and ended up sending me a message saying, can I get off so he could go to bed?
I got to say, though, Jake, you absolutely nailed it last night with a hilarious tweet. A hashtag was recently started called Things Push Up Hates. Now, you added to it last night... Things Push Up Hates dropping mark of the year, which is brilliant, and that has had over 750 retweets.
Well, that's
yeah, funny that. I was actually in the shower.
Here we go.
Getting changed.
Are you referring back to that?
Yeah, we were finishing up doing what we were doing.
You were showering.
As you're doing the shower.
I went out, got dressed, and looked for my phone, and it wasn't there. And I went through my bag, went through my locker, and all of a sudden Jack come running in with a big smile on his face, and I said, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "You had no reception." I said, what do you want about? He ran up the race onto the ground to get reception and actually tweeted that himself off.
From your Twitter account. Yeah, very well. That is really very nicely done.
Hey, the head high, you're a physical man who plays the game hard. We had that interesting ruling last week, the match review panel, with the Ben Reid, Lindsay Thomas decision, which threw a bit of a curveball into footy because we thought we understood this by now. Did it confuse you when you saw the ruling handed out, that there was no case for Thomas to answer here?
When you look at it, I think it's just an accidental head clash. The bloke's not going out there deliberately headbutt him and knock him out. When you're a player, you've got to expect contact within 5 metres of the ball. So
I know, but weren't you of the understanding that if you chose to bump and you even accidentally made contact with an opponent's head, you're in trouble? Isn't that the way you understood the ruling to be?
Oh, I think common sense kicks in a little bit.
Bucks went off half-cocked, didn't he? Bucks went nuts over that.
Well, he needs to defend his player, and then Scott needs to defend his. So I don't think there's a big problem with it.
It is interesting, though, because Nathan apparently called Brad Scott and Lindsay Thomas to apologise for what he said. So he even seems to think he's in the wrong.
We need to understand how to lay a proper bump, and I think you, Jack, should run a clinic on how to lay a proper bump, because this is how it's done, right here, bang, and then the follow-up, That's how you do it.
He's only 7'3" too, Jake Spencer. So, hey, mate, great start to the year. It's good for footy, and you're good for football, and it's great to see what you've done with your career. Good luck for the rest of the year, and thanks for coming out.